So, hi everybody. Steve Cady here at Bowling Green State University with our 2025 All Things Change or Change Conference. We used to call it a few different things. We're now Change 2025, and we have a wonderful group of people here this year. And we're wrapping up our series, and I couldn't think of a more fun person and engaging and creative. This is a super session that Gene's put together for us.
At least you hope so.
Yeah, yes, I'm forecasting a little bit here, and yeah. So Gene, just thank you so much. You've been a wonderful voice, mentor, and little spurts and ways of encouraging me and so forth. So I'm personally very grateful for you. I know that many people that are here today are grateful for you. I know that for sure. And your leadership, your voice, and your thoughtfulness are always present in many things that are happening with the Academy of Management and your leadership there, and just in the field and your program and your students. So this is a time of gratitude, and I think a really great time to say thank you. And we're glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're here.
I'm grateful to be invited.
Yeah, thanks. And it's great. And then, we have BGSU in our doctorate program. It's a doctorate in organization development change. We also have a master's program, and it's really focused on helping people to develop the skills necessary to advance their thought leadership in service of what I say is professional joy, which is making a difference, transforming organizations and revitalizing communities and developing human potential around areas of passion and the work that they want to do, all grounded in the core principles of our field in organization development and change. And so just really, I'm grateful for our students and all the people here. We got Lisa, who's our producer. Thank you, Lisa, for all the work you're doing. Teo, who's been supporting the process and all this work. And Nathan, who's done all the marketing, the behind the scenes work. Thank you, Nathan, for all of your good work. So with our topic today, I'm going to turn it over to you, Gene, and we can get started when you're ready, and then we'll go ahead and kick it off.
Okay. Thanks a million, Steve. And let me say, I've been able to listen, watch the recordings of some of the presenters. Usually, I've had something scheduled at this hour, but I know that there have been different styles for how to get people involved. And I think because I'm going to be talking about a paper that we're working on, this doesn't um, lend itself to just stopping mid-course and asking for people to be involved. So what I would say is I will talk. If you feel free to add things to the chat, Steve will monitor the chat. If you want to interrupt me at one point, fine. On the other hand, I'm happy to just keep talking and telling a kind of story, and then keep your ideas flowing, and then we can talk about them whenever
Sure.
you want. Okay, so let's start. And actually, Steve is not quite done yet,
Yeah, you can go ahead and share your slides and go ahead and we can.
which I am doing.
Okay,
And
there
as
you
you
go.
will see,
Yes.
the first slide says the inspiration for this talk, or for a lot of this talk, is Pudge, the Bowling Green cat. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. That's
I
a.
happened to discover Pudge sometime during this semester. He's been on TV a lot. So I think that Steve, you or Teo
Yeah.
or somebody need to say a little bit about who Pudge is.
Yeah. Sure. So Pudge, he's a 3-year-old exotic short hair Persian cat, and George Carlson, he's a 5th-year student and a long snapper for BGSU's football team. And Pudge is just a regular cat in his dorm room or his room where he's at, and he was getting in. He was injured, and he was coming to practice, and he was just depressed and kind of down. And he'd bring Pudge with him just to kind of cheer himself up. And well, Pudge started cheering everybody up in the locker room, and they adopted him as the mass cat, not the mascot, but the mass cat. He got just a lot of attention. Some people were posting some things about him, but before you know it, he's increasing attendance at football games. So people want to come see the cat. He's on Good Morning America, CNN, ESPN's College Game Day, and CBS Evening News. And I think what makes him special is that people really just adore the cat, and they find him a charming symbol for them of community and spirit. And so he has been instantly thrust into a very famous spot for our university.
So he it is appropriate at a time we're talking about spirits to acknowledge him.
Yeah.
Okay, um, so let's move on a little bit. This is a chapter that Bill Passmore and I are revising. The original one I wrote with Dick Woodman, and it was published in 2012. Uh, Many of you know that Dick and Bill started the Research and Organization Change and Development series, and they've done a lot of work together. Dick made the unfortunate decision to take retirement seriously, which is hard to imagine, but he is. So when I was invited to redo the chapter, I invited Bill to work with me on it, and that's actually been really invigorating for me. It's been fun, and I about an hour ago I sent the slides to Bill, and he said since the chapter is due in at the end of this year, he said that right now, rather than being on the talk, he's working on the references for the paper. So yay, Bill. So at the time we were working on the original chapter, there was a lot that was being said about OD, organization development and change, being dead, just as Marley was dead at the beginning of Dickens' Christmas Carol. So I'm going to present some of A Christmas Carol. And you should be aware that rather than using chapters in that book, Charles Dickens used the term staves. So I'm going to talk some about the original story and some about the present. Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was dead as a doornail. No, don't be stupid. It was OD that was dead. Its demise was signed by academics and practitioners alike, all people whose names were good upon change. So it was signed by Ken White, and these are just people in the 21st century who were writing up to the time we wrote the first chapter. Ken Widener said OD was a brand in dire states. Barbara Bunker, Billy Altman, and Roy Lewicki said OD's well of ideas had run dry. Larry Grider and Tom Cummings questioned OD's future because of all the signs that suggested its demise. Chris Ardress said that its demise was due to the reasoning mindsets that OD practitioners use. And there were tons more people who were saying OD's dead. Well, OD isn't Pudge the cat. It isn't any kind of cat, Persian long hair or anything else. It's not supposed to have 9 lives. So why in the dickens are thousands of people actively doing organization development? Why are practitioner journals like the OD Review, OD Journal, and so forth well received? Why are some interventions like appreciative inquiry, future search, and World Cafe so popular around the world? Whether they're used correctly or not, that's an entirely different question. Why are there so many practitioner-oriented graduate programs that emphasize OD? And why have these webinars been taking place all semester? Why are you here? Why have you participated in them? So what Dick and I said was we have to pay attention to spirits. And in A Christmas Carol, Jacob Marley, who was dead, said 3 spirits of the past, present, and future, who all arrived over the night of Christmas Eve to warn Scrooge what would happen to him if he didn't change his ways. And in the first edition of this chapter, we described 4 spirits of organizing, practice, scholar-practitioner links, and paradox that suggested why we believed, this is again saying this, we wrote this, I think we had turned in the final version of the chapter in 2010, that suggested why OD was alive and well and would likely stay there, regardless of whether everybody in the world said it was dead. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to summarize the messages of these spirits. In the revised version of the chapter we're doing, I'm summarizing these, and then we're going to move on. But I just want you to hear what we said at that point. So one of the things we said is, well, one of the reasons OD lives is that it does a really good job of dealing with a lot of the fundamental tasks that organizations have to deal with, especially about core issues and structure, processes, and strategies, and things like that. And many of the speakers this semester that I've been able to hear or see on YouTube have done that. So these core issues include things like work process design, performance assessment, resource allocation, employee engagement, change management. And I know that we wrote this in 2010, and I'm saying this in 2025, so I'll whisper diversity. But you're not hearing me say that. And these issues require ongoing attention, and they don't say solved once. You address them once, and for some weird reason, they don't stay unaddressed forever. So what we thought, we heard the spirit of organizing say, organization development lives because it deals with a key issue of organizing, with key issues. We also thought that OD lives because, as a kind of tautology, people keep doing it. There are all kinds of OD practitioners who are actively applying OD principles and tools. There are large consultancies, independent practices, smaller. Fred Miller and Judith Katz were on earlier, for example. They participate in professional networks, maybe the OD network, maybe organization development and change or management consulting divisions of the academy. And they might go by different names. And I know OD sometimes gets in fights. Are we OD or are we change management? But the fact that this is still, that they are being used is a testament to OD's enduring value. So we can hear the spirit of practice laughing at us. Organization development lives because people keep using it. And we argued that OD lives because it effectively bridges the scholar-practitioner gap. So at OD, organization development change, has been at the forefront in linking scholarship and practice. This was explicit in action research. It was foundational for JABS, which Dick edited for several years following Bob, who had edited it for some time, Bob Marshak, and has almost brought it back from the dead. But it remains a central dimension of that journal's mission several decades later. For example, now JABS includes both scholarly articles and practitioners' corner sections. It has sometimes had academic scholar special issues, such as one that David edited. And there are all kinds of scholar practitioners. I've only mentioned a very few here who have addressed academic practitioner links for decades. The spirit of scholar practitioner links smiles. OD lives because it effectively bridges the scholar practitioner gap. There's also a spirit of paradox, we said, that organizations have to both create value in the marketplace and develop the capabilities of their employees to function well and be happy in their work. This is a kind of duality. Mike Beer, who talked last week, said at some point there's both theories E and theories O, and OD has to do both. This is a summary, very brief one-line summary of their extended argument. But what we're saying is that many approaches to organizations focus on one or the other. OD is aware of both. And as we said last time, diagnosis, when it's used, often focuses on negatives, but skilled OD practitioners know that it's important to also identify what individuals, teams, and departments are doing well. And I'm also very aware that a dialogic approach focuses much less on negatives and much more on what's possible. So the spirit of paradox says, OD lives because it engages paradox more effectively than most other changes, approaches, and philosophies. Okay, that was that. On Christmas morning, the spirits left, and Scrooge awoke, flustered and glowing with good intentions. Yes, the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, in the time before him was his own to make amends in, because the spirit had told him all the things he was screwing up. So Scrooge said, I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. He was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. That's pretty much, that's in the last paragraph of Dickens' A Christmas Carol. But that's the end of stave one. Since the first edition of the handbook, a new book has been published by Charlie Levitt called The Further Adventures of Ebenezer Scrooge. And you can't read it. I can't get this any bigger on the screen, but it says A Christmas Carol Continued. So what this book does, more or less brilliantly, depending on your purpose in reading it, is that these are the things that Scrooge did after his big reform due to the spirits visiting him. So, in other words, Scrooge wasn't just no longer dead. What happened next was important. And the book starts with Scrooge was alive to begin with. There could be no doubt about that, alive and kicking. But what about organization development? I have become aware that the world has changed gigantically in the last 15 years. And the things that Dick and I said about 2010, some of them are accurate, but there's a lot that is very different. So I'm just summarizing a very few of the challenges of the past 15 years. The COVID pandemic changed a lot. It gave rise to new ways of working, for better or for worse, new technologies to support virtual teamwork, and make it more difficult for people to get for organizations to get their employees to go back to the office and talk to each other. I think David Cooperrider's use of AI for appreciative inquiry, maybe he has to change that or something, because the artificial intelligence version of AI has evolved from a distant promise to an everyday working companion, to put it mildly. There's been a shift in political administrations in the US and Europe and some other places too. One of the things that has happened is it certainly affected diversity programs. It's gigantic, especially in the US, it's gigantically affected immigration. It's gigantically affected the role of regulatory bodies and things like that. So these are just a few of the things that have changed. So, but I want to, before going back to that, let's talk about how OD didn't die. At least Phil Mervis's 2022 take on how OD didn't die. Now, I will say that this was published in a special issue of the OD Review co-edited by David Cooperrider. So just so you know that. But what he said, by the late 20th century, OD had primarily become a technique. So this is worth thinking about. Is OD now primarily a technique? He said it was stripped of its animating intent, ethical moorings, and higher aims, which is why a lot of people said it was dead. But then things changed for the better. And here's what he said changed. The things he emphasized had nothing to do directly with OD. He said the world around OD changed and gave it more possibilities. And the first thing, of course, he emphasized was the development of positive psychology, which did not come from OD. Positive psychology did lead to positive organizational scholarship, which was directly influenced particularly by Jane Dutton, Bob Quinn, and Kim Cameron at Michigan, and many people who worked with them, including Gretchen Spreitzer, who's become very involved in it. I think of myself as their second cousin once removed. Basically, a lot of the articles that people there write, I get sent to review. So I'm not directly a positive psychology person, but like as I mentioned, I am writing for this for the new handbook, Oxford Handbook. He said it was also due to the awakening of business to needs for sustainable development. So businesses started thinking more broadly. And in particular, now again, this is in the special issue that David Cooperrider co-edited. A lot of businesses not only started to be aware of needs for sustainable development, but started to want to help create a more positive future. And that was fostered by Business as an Agent of World Benefit, headquartered at Case in Cleveland. And that's meaningful because I grew up in the Cleveland suburbs and my father went to Case, but not in management. Pardon me, he went to Western Reserve. Case Western Reserve University. My father went to Western Reserve. Also, there have been a lot of global aspirations that have been inspiring for a bunch of people. One of them has to do with the UN's description of sustainable development, with 17 different sustainable development goals, all of which in theory are going to be met by 2030, but I'm pretty sure that that date isn't going to be met. And even the World Economic Forum have increasingly identified issues of climate change, social and geopolitical unrest, and so forth. Now, I will also comment that in the US, currently, politically, none of these things are relevant. But politically, that's the case. But let's just leave it as a broader world. So maybe a main reason that OD continues to live is that businesses and some elements of society at large have higher ideals than they did. And I'm writing here, I wrote this very purposefully. I'm not going to ask you to say out loud whether you agree with Phil's assessment, but I think it's worth pondering. It's worth pondering. Oh, yeah, and organizations also have all these other challenges too, come to think of it. So consider the new roles of the spirits of OD. Here's the new spirits of organizing. Tom Cummings and Chris Worley have done multiple editions of a Handbook of Organization Development. And their editions have gotten increasingly more focused on larger groups than just individual organizations. So one of the things they're saying very clearly and arguing is that you can't just think of the ecosystem anymore as a factor of production. And there has to be more to success than just wealth and material goods. And therefore, it's important that organization development focus on ecological sustainability. And Bill Passmore, in his recent research organization change development chapter, says organizations have to keep developing new capacities on an almost continuous basis and be agile in their work because the world is changing so much. Just even imagine how much AI, the artificial intelligence version of it, has changed in the last 2 years. Further, in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, it's often not possible for an individual organization to survive on its own. And it's important that there be mega community-based interventions. So these are community interventions that are much broader than individual organizations. They may involve a work organization and other groups. They may involve larger communities in other ways. Here are some exemplars. Future search methodologies are increasingly being used in communities. So I will just say a little and encourage Sandra and Michael later to talk about their work in Northern Ireland that has, I summarized it here, but it has helped transform Northern Ireland's public policy and socioeconomic landscape. I should tell you, I did not know in advance that they were going to be on this, but I think it's worth it to hear what they're doing as a clear exemplar. So another one is that Sue Morman, who's a friend of mine who retired from the Center for Effective Organizations at the University of Southern California, were involved in studying the building of a local foods community in Northeast Ohio. And one of the things that we explored was some of the development challenges involved in moving toward a more ecologically and socially valuable way of providing healthy food to a mega community. But these efforts have been going on since the 1990s. They started with university extension programs. They developed through business and civic leaders. And it's something I will talk about in 2 slides. Organization development methodologies, especially appreciative inquiry, have helped to develop the alignment of stakeholders, but still there has been a lot of needing to deal with conflicting interests and agendas among different sets of stakeholders, like civic participants or business leaders or government people often think a little bit differently than local farmers, say. And this is a multi decade change. So it is about all kinds of complicated things. But if there are going to be real changes in communities, they're often going to take multiple decades. But I want to tell you one wonderful little thing I learned from this experience that I learned from Gretchen Spreitzer's mother, actually. I grew up in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And Gretchen, who's one of the editors of the handbook, Gretchen's mother wrote to her and said, "Is G. Bartunek related to Michael Bartunek at all? Who's one of the farmers who's involved in this initiative?" So I got in touch with him and learned that we're probably about fourth cousins. But it's been kind of fun to discover a family relationship to this work of ecologically sustainable community building. So the new spirit of organizing says, these new developments are pretty exciting. But boy, do we have a ways to go. The new spirit of practice. Bob and Jervis developed a lot that's very important about dialogic-based interventions. One of the things that Bill Passmore particularly has written about is that dialogue has to include the right people, including people who are experts. It has to include increased capabilities in multi-stakeholder decision-making, the use of expert knowledge, significant attempts to apply different types of expertise. Like from the work with Cleveland, I learned a lot about hydroponic farming, which I had never heard of before, but now I know. Somebody has to know how to do stuff like that. Somebody has to know how to sell it, all that kind of stuff. And awareness that dialogue, if it's confined to do a very small number of people, might have the wrong starting point if it doesn't include the people who know what they're talking about. And so it involves parties with different roles, expertise, and perspectives. In other words, to practice in a larger community, it's necessary to be very intentional about who are the people who are involved and that they bring this is Sandra, this is a slightly different take on the whole system. It's defining a system as including all the expertise that's necessary to address problems. So here are some examples. This actually, what I just talked about, was a sustainable Cleveland initiative that when I lived there, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire, which was pretty embarrassing. So they started to be an initiative led a lot by the mayor of Cleveland, and David Cooper and other people at the Fowler Center, which was a 10-year effort to build a more sustainable region with the term a green city by a blue lake, not a river catching on fire. So it included a number of appreciative inquiry summits with different themes each year. And it was very impressive. A second example that I'm aware of, because I've been a reviewer for it for the last few years, is the Center for Systems Awareness, led by Meta Bell and Peter Senge. And they undertake a number of initiatives, but one of them is a certification program that involves training, workshops, individual work at home, and all kinds of things like that for leaders, especially of educational efforts. Those are the ones I've often reviewed that are developing their capacity to act based on compassionate systems awareness. And I've given the link here. There's lots more that could be said about it. And as I mentioned, there are other initiatives too. Otto Scharmer, many of you are aware of his work of presencing and Theory U. He also hosts leadership and innovation labs and customized programs for organizations and businesses. He's doing a lot that are important projects, practice-based projects. Adam Kahane and the folks at Rios Partners, which is in Canada, Peter Coleman at Columbia's International Center for Cooperation and Conflict Resolution are doing a lot to help people and groups who disagree, mistrust, and oppose each other to find ways to move together through stretch activities. Deborah Newmeyer at Columbia Teachers College is doing a lot to help people develop X-ray vision to look underneath the elements of standard change models to uncover what really drives members of systems to respond to change as they do. And the Organization Development Journal published a special issue in June 2024 highlighting OD in Africa, which to my mind was really impressive because it said, gee, people in some parts of Africa don't think exactly like people in the US. So the new spirit of practice reflects, it's lucky that so many people practicing OD keep developing and refining practices. I don't know how many of us are aware of all these new practice initiatives or in updated practice initiatives that are taking place. But I think that they're really important and they might actually be able to save us from ourselves a little bit. The new spirit of scholar-practitioner links. So a large number of scholar practitioners contributed to the book I edited on an inspiration from Ed Schein that dealt with social scientists confronting global crises. I consciously put together a group of people who are both academics concerned about practice and people who are primarily consultants who are academically involved. And I think the idea of thinking of how both sets of people together can make a difference is important. And one of the things Bill is much more aware of than I am, but he's very conscious that in almost everything written about the topic of artificial intelligence adoption in organizations, there's discussion of what's going on in practice and what needs to go on from a researcher perspective that's a deeper perspective on what's happening. So here are just a couple exemplars of academic practitioner links. Ed Schein, before his death a couple of years ago, was an absolute model of this. His theorizing was based on his consulting experience. He emphasized toward the end of his life, his focus was much, much more on the importance of relationships among people, among countries, among businesses. And he started to think in terms of humble inquiry and humble leadership as a coherent philosophy of interpersonal leadership for complex adaptive systems. And he has books on that. I mean, they're all the things I'm saying I could give you tons of references for, but not right now. David Coghlan. I also didn't know he was going to be on this talk, but I'm kind of glad right now that he has made continued efforts to enhance collaboration between researchers and practitioners, especially in terms of action research in one's own organizations. And one of the things he does brilliantly is invoke the spirits of Kurt Lewin and Ed Schein to make it evident, no matter what the challenges are now, the wisdom of the founders of our field continues. So this new spirit says, anybody who thinks that scholarship is irrelevant to the practice of OD is nuts. I could be more formal, like he's crazy, or a lot of things. And it becomes even more relevant as the complexities of the world increase. The new spirit of paradox. This is one area where I think there have been academic developments and practitioner developments that haven't totally synced with each other. So I'll just say briefly that in their book, Both and Thinking, Wendy Smith and Marianne Lewis talk about how the importance of embracing and leveraging contradictory forces. People and organizations can turn tensions into opportunities for creativity. In their 2024 book, Performing Organizational Paradoxes, Gail Fairhurst and Linda Putnam focus on the importance of thinking of paradoxes as processes that are performed, not as something static. Practitioner-wise, there's a whole bunch of emphasis on polarity management, which is very different from the way the academics involved are talking about it. And Chuck Judge talks about the importance of holding the polarity of keeping what's core to OD values and practices while acquiring something new and development. That, again, there's much more that could be said. Jervis Bush and Agaishi say that basically we don't have to have one perfect model of organizing for every organization. Basically, what we have to do is recognize that effective collective action rests on a set of tensions. So one of the things that's necessary for thinking paradoxically is to say tensions are good, basically. So Adam Kahane's work emphasizes polarities and inherent non-exclusive tensions that have to be embraced and navigated. Tima Bansal and Garima Sharma invited academics and managers to work together to analyze paradoxes involving cooperation and competition. Otto Scharmer's presency work addresses the agency paradox that a lot of people in this world believe their actions have zero impact, despite the potential if everyone were to act. Future Search operates on a kind of paradoxical view that common ground can be created out of diverse and opposing perspectives, and a combination of differentiation and integration are core to doing it. So the new spirit of paradox says, this is really exciting, but maybe we might want to get the academics, maybe we want to get some practitioners to run some polarity workshop interventions so the academics and practitioners can talk with each other just a tad more. Okay. Scrooge never stopped wandering the streets of London, looking for places where he might spread the spirit of Christmas and wishing the passers-by a happy holiday any time of year. We can, or can we, think of the challenges we're facing as opportunities the world's making available for us for doing the equivalent today? That's a question. Well, it's a statement and a question because I don't know the answer. The end. So
Thank you, Gene. That was really, really good. And what I'd like to do for everybody so we can get into conversation, I'd love for you all to take 3 to 5 minutes in small group, 2 or 3 people, just to say hi. What's a reaction to what you heard? And what's a question? And let's come back and bring some, just take a minute to create some thoughtful questions to bring back for us to discuss.
and also, if any of the
Yeah.
people who I referred to want to add anything or to anything, they should feel free to do that.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think what we can do is when we come back,
Yeah.
those that you mentioned that you referred to, I'll ask you all to kind of chime in and share your thoughts after we come back and give you a second to kind of connect in around that. And then I'll open it up for those that you referenced, Gene, to kick it off with
Oh,
some
Dolly
thoughts.
grew up in Cleveland. Yay.
Yeah. So, so Lisa, if you could go ahead and open the room and let's give people a chance to say hi to each other and bring some questions back and thoughts.
Yay, Jillian.
Yeah, Gene, it's really what I think. It's interesting. My first reaction to what you were sharing was the OD dead conversation in the early 2000s was over 20 years ago, right?
Oh, it started in the late 1970s,
Yeah,
but
it's
I
like,
just I didn't want to spend the entire time talking about that.
right. Do you think it's just a personality trait of the field of OD to think it's always dying, even though it's not? Like, how you sometimes for, you don't pause to recognize all the blessings you have and all the things that we have that are going well. and we seem to think we're in a place when we're really not, have never been there. What are your thoughts? Have we ever really been dead, or is it just been? Is there something in the personality or traits of the field?
Um, I I'm not sure. I think it's probably all kinds of things, and some of it. I mean, one of the things that strikes me as important right now is that a lot of people are complaining that there are not new ideas in OD. What's going on now that I think like I gave all these exemplars on purpose
Yeah.
of people doing really creative things. But I'm not sure that even though I believe the scholar practitioner links are crucial, I'm not sure um, that they are communicating with each other in a way that seems positive.
I'd like to ask a question too, if I could. And it's related. I mean, related to that.
Excuse me a
I'm working.
second, Lisa. Maybe if people are starting to
Yeah,
ask questions, um, you can end the groups in a minute or something like that, so they can come back. So,
yeah. Well, I would. I just ask. What? I have a hypothesis, but I'm a little hesitant to share it with you before we do our questions here at the end. But I would just observe. I don't know that OD practitioners have given up on the field, but I kind of feel like the world of scholarship is giving up on the label OD. And I mean, I've been part of leadership conversations in the ODC division, and that's the sense I get. It's like somehow I feel like the scholarly side is the side of this connection that's letting us down. And somehow I think I agree with you that the OD is exploding, but what we are connecting to the label OD is that's where that's where the breakdown occurs. So I think there are lots of things happening that are OD that aren't being connected to the field in any coherent way. So I guess that's part of my hypothesis. Um, and I
yeah,
think, yeah,
I
I
think
think,
I'd rather not respond to that because I think other people here have.
yeah,
I think that's really interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think what you're saying is important. I just don't want to give a definitive
yeah,
right as if I knew.
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I
no,
think it's good. I think people will be coming back, and we'll kind of let them kind of chime in. We wanted to just keep the conversation going while they were in their groups, but as they come back, we can talk about that. But I think that
Mhm.
um, the novelty in the field is ripe right now. And interestingly enough, the AACSB, Gene, I don't know if you know this, but the accrediting policies or criteria are shifting to looking at more scholar practitioner publications and emphasizing practitioner oriented outlets.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's moving in that direction. That's the message that's being shared. And then when you look at the other thing in terms of trends around our demographics, there are going to be more people over the age of 65 by 2030 than under the age of 18. And so our workforce is going to more than ever before become intergenerational. It's going to be the new organizational form is going to be intergenerational. And with that, it's going to come the doctoral programs and the education programs and what our students are learning are going to be they're going to be learning from people who have 20, 30, 40 years of experience. And it's just going to shift the conversation, I think. But let's come. Everybody's back now, so welcome back, everybody. We were just having a little side conversation while you all checked in, and so you can throw something in the chat if you have a question, or you can just raise your hand, and we'll just kind of bring you in. But Lisa, if you want to go ahead, bring everybody into the main screen, And let's see everybody and all of us. And
Well, let me just,
yeah,
Jackie, you worked with Dick Woodman, didn't you? You're muted.
When I was at the doctoral program,
Yeah.
yes, I was involved in a chapter in the editorial volume that you mentioned, and I just reviewed a few articles. Honestly, I didn't do much.
No,
And
but that's great. But your connection to Dick Woodman, which is awesome. Thank
yeah,
you.
well, thank you for this talk and for calling on me.
okay. So yeah, so let's just open it up here. We have, you mentioned a few people. So there's Sandra, there's Dave, Coughlin. You mentioned both Sandra and Dave and
And
some other
Dave
work.
Biron has raised his hand.
Yeah, and Dave Piron. And so, Dave, what do you have you want to share? Sandra, um, and
Well,
others, what do you want to share? And then we'll open up for some more Q&A and so forth.
well, my thought is that scholars are practitioners of scholarship. So let's remove this idea that somehow people are doing do and then scholars just sit and reflect and write to each other. There's a whole aspect of being a full-time scholar that requires a lot of work, a lot of collaboration, a lot of relationships. And I'm not sure the people in the field who we also call practitioners are even aware of that. However, on the other hand, if we can sensitize scholars to the idea that many of the challenges that they live with as scholars are replicated in the work of people helping organizations survive and change, that so we have common cause and we have common experiences. Because I can see from the practitioner standpoint that they look at the ivory tower and they look at the print page and they say, what do they know? How could they? Their life is so easy compared to us. We're out here in the trenches. On the other hand, we can't let the practitioners off the hook. As was said several times, and particularly by Ed Shine, it's the work of being a practitioner that a scholar is doing where they derive much of their inspiration and their relationships for change and to write. So this knitting together has to happen, Gene, and you've always been leading and calling for that. Do you see that we're almost forced by circumstances to get to know each other now, academics and practitioners, and realize we are all working for the same thing?
I think that's a great question, and there's no way in the world that I'm going to answer it.
Just say yes. You're off the hook.
No, I think it's an ongoing tension. And I think the issue is how do we keep it being attention, not attention. Although actually
Yeah.
that's an interesting screw up term. How do you keep it being attention rather than dropping off one end or the other?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Well, Sandra, you've been patient. I know you have some thoughts, and David, you too.
Yeah.
I've been watching you both a little bit here. So, Sandra, would you like to share some of your reflections?
Sure. I'm also conscious of the time, and there's a minute left to your session, but tell me when to stop.
Yeah. So, Sandra, we go 90 minutes with a follow up,
ah,
a deeper dive
okay,
into
good.
her views on OD. So
But
we're going to go a little bit over, and we'll capture David Bright, and I will capture Jean's reflections in a kind of a structured interview format for the last few minutes around her
super,
view on some things. Okay, so you're fine.
super. Just building on what Dave was just talking about, and we don't know each other, but I look forward to a conversation. In July, I was honored with the Distinguished Scholar Award by the ODC division of the Academy of Management, and the 50-minute talk that I gave was about bridging the gap between scholars, between academics and practitioners, and feel so strongly about that. And of course, with Jean's guidance on how to frame that, I was the first practitioner. well, I'll just say, regardless of the scholarly work that I have been doing all these years in building Future Search with Marvin Weisbord, I was the first practitioner to be given this award. So I took that very seriously. And so there is work to be done in terms of that divide. What is it? What is it that we are both holding? And I want to like step into the whole notion of differentiation and integration, which some of you may know really is one foundational theory of change in the Future Search work. We are holding differences that are important and that are significant to our goal of practice and teaching. But what we do in our work, because these tensions around the world, and you can name any two groups, any two elements, any two perspectives, these tensions that we are holding at this moment in time are getting so further and further apart that we're not in conversation. And one of the things that we believe in Future Search, and Michael Donnelly is here, my partner in that, one of the things that we believe is that when we can bring those voices together in the group, in a room around a task that they all have a stake in, that there is the potential for discovering what I'll call the similarities across the differences, or common ground, where we can talk. Oh, thank you, Dave. Where we can talk. And one of the things, I'll add this insight of ours, one of the things we know is that we certainly can't lob at each other. We've been doing that politically across all of the issues that are important to us. We can't lob at each other. But if we can find a way to talk within the bandwidth within which we can hear each other, what does common ground mean? It means those areas of similarity, those similarities, those common aspirations that we really do hold. And I'll repeat, within the bandwidth of the many things that exist, because we're often talking above others or not engaging others. When we can discover that common ground, which is a fundamental element of the work that we do, what Michael and I do with Future Search and our international network of practitioners, when we can discover that, it gives us a way to move. So tension has to result in some kind of movement. And when that happens, at least we've taken a step, which of course enables a step and then the next step and the next step. And I'll just mention one other thing about when you mentioned, Jean, about getting the expertise in the room. Absolutely. And we use that acronym RN, people with authority and resources and expertise and information that no one else may have, and those impacted. Every one of those perspectives have experience. So formal experience, informal experience, decision-making authority, implementation ability. When that configuration happens, then the potential is there with the potential discovery of common ground. The potential is there to do something about the world that we're living in now that's so fragmented. Now, I'll add one more thing, because Jean, you're asking about OD, and Steve, OD. I remember when I came into this with Marv in the 90s, we never identified us, because Marv had kind of moved away from his deep connection to OD into this work, the two of us together, and never identified with OD. But I think the fact is that whatever you do, or whatever OD practitioners are doing, is experienced as OD. I mean, I don't think there's a single definition of OD. our values are really what hold us together. And our practices hopefully are along the lines that I was talking about, which is doing something about the fragmentation and moving toward wholeness. I'll stop for now. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Very nice. Thank you. Wish I could have said it that well.
Well, fortunately, this is all being recorded. David Coghlan, we gonna?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that really that the identity of OD, I mean, okay, OD in the 50s and all the original books, Warren Benz's book about OD, counteracting bureaucracy and all, that was the time then. So for me, OD is a living, because it's about people talking to each other, about things that are critical. I think it's going to change in each generation. And for me, the exciting thing at the moment is I think hopefully we will now counter the kind of move within the academy, in the broad sense of the academy and the universities, away from action research, to bring action research back, because we know what to do. I mean, the scientists have told us exactly what to do. And what OD does, and action research, the tradition of action research in OD, which is about bringing the right people together to talk about things and to actually, I've just submitted a book with some other colleagues on how to do transdisciplinary research. I submitted it this last week. And it's about transdisciplinarity, the right people. I was talking to somebody recently, and he was saying he was on this big water project, and the engineer was showing how well the new pumping system was going to be more ecologically friendly and how it was doing that. And the social geographer beside him said, well, in 5 years' time, there might be no river. Now they have to start talking. So I think, bringing back the action-oriented scholarship of the scholar-practitioner is the way to start addressing the grand challenges, because we know what to do. The scientists have told us what to do, but we need to talk about and start doing it and reflecting on what happens when we try to do it. So that's, for me, and that's what OD has always been about, whether it's within a firm or between firms or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm really excited by your optimism, Gene. I mean, in terms of the paradoxes and that, yeah, or the spirits.
Yeah, and Sean Otto, you had a pretty optimistic viewpoint you had in the chat that you shared.
Well, just in a nutshell, I see that cycle of death and rebirth as a strength, vice you it looks to me, the way I see the world these days, is like this learning cycle. You sense something, you learn from that, and then you adapt. And that seems to apply very well to this field. So I see it as a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah.
My very distant cousin, Michael Bartunek, the farmer,
Yeah.
would agree with that.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bob's here. I don't want to put you on the spot, Bob, but it's really good to see you. Didn't know if you wanted to chime in. Would love to hear from you, and whenever you're ready or have time to do that. And we have others that are here. Does anybody have a question or a point as you're taking away that you in your small group discussion that you want to share?
Can I share something?
Sure.
I want to say that because I'm myself in the verge of both ODC a little bit, but and OB, so I appreciate this opportunity. It's like more of a well-rounded understanding of the underpinning of the field and application. As a person who's international faculty, I most appreciate the fact that hearing about OD applications in different cultural contexts. So this is my major takeaway, and it's very encouraging. And I would, if I can I email you afterwards to get some citations for reading, and both for maybe just being more effective with the community that I interact with, because I'm not locally from US. So that is my takeaway. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, that with luck, our chapter will be done pretty close to January 1st. So I mean, I could send you some references now, and I can also send you the whole chapter when we send it in too.
That
I'd
would,
be glad to do that.
that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
That's great. So, yeah. So, Eldon, you've been engaged. I've been watching you right there, and you know Gene. And what are some of your thoughts? What are you hearing that's resonating with you?
Well, one of the things that's really sticking with me is this idea that we really do have to get uh, broader group of stakeholders involved. These issues are huge, and part of the problem, of course, is that we don't always know what we don't know. So we need to hear from each other. We need to really listen to each other. I've been spending some time with my master's students to really focus on the issue of listening. And I keep saying to them, if you're a leader who knows how to listen, to truly listen, you're going to be outstanding because it's just not done well, if at all. And so getting together a broader group of people who will truly listen to each other, to learn, to get past what they don't know, and I have in mind here something that Adam Grant calls the mountain of stupidity, where we pontificate on what we think we know and never get past that. So we need to learn and hear from one another, and learn and grow and move together. And it's just going to require, a larger group of people. And certainly we have to get outside of our echo chambers to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Eldon. Anybody else here that I don't want to put anybody on the spot. So, but anybody want to
If
have
no
something they
one,
want to
if
share?
I will wait, but if no one else wants to say something, I'll just build on that with saying, as practitioners, we have no authority. It's the leaders who have authorities. Maybe even academics don't have authority in these communities or organizations. But what we have to do, and I kind of am building on what Yablom wrote in her chat, and it has to do with courage. Yeah, we know we have to get a lot of people together, but you had spoken, Jean, about what Michael and I did in Northern Ireland, and one of our very early future searches or interventions in early Northern Ireland was in the city of Derry. I won't say Londonderry, Derry, Londonderry, to create a one plan, a strategic plan for that city that had been through the troubles for over 30 years and had just signed the peace agreement um, about a year before, and the leader who brought these people together had the courage to get the diversity of 4 political parties and people from every walk of life, and et cetera, authority, impacted the whole thing. It's her leadership that brought the people into the room. So that was part one. And then part two is the journey that they went on when they were together. And yes, here comes faith. I'll bring faith in at this time of the year. Faith that when people are able to, in a contained way, it's not in crazy, as I said, lobbing at each other, but in a contained way with a task that they all need that they need each other in order to make happen, they will discover and in a common ground, a shared agreement, a way forward. And they did. And that's what our experience has been over 30 years and around the country of Northern Ireland, as well as other parts in the world. So I'll come back to, as an NEOD practitioner that that has a foundation of what it means for a system to change, to go from here to here, has a theory about how I'm going to enable that. And if it takes courage for a leader to apply what that practitioner is saying are the conditions. Don't revert back to something easy that's just going to not make anything happen. And I think I'll stop talking, but the frustration is the kind of stepping back and not holding what you really believe will enable change and then taking the easy way out.
Yeah, right on. Thanks.
I'm not saying people do that, but
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks, Sandra. And we, as I mentioned, I would love to have you and Michael on a session here coming up if we're able to organize that, because I think you have a lot to share. Your sharing at the Academy was a brilliant sharing. I don't know if Jean was there to hear that.
Jean
No,
wasn't.
I had back surgery last summer.
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, let me just tell you, it was brilliant, and the room was chaotic because of the noise, and we needed a nice space within which to really hear what Sandra, what you shared so passionately. I was just moved and inspired and learned a ton. I just really appreciated your perspective. So hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Thank you.
And we're going to shift gears now into the OD deep dive. And before we do, we have some questions, and David's going to help me with that. But Gina, I just wanted to say my take around this tension, because that's the paradox and the tension. I think this is my hypothesis, that we've spent almost 300 years teaching people to not think, to not use their whole brain through industrialized education practices. I've been kind of saying this for a long time, through industrialized and factory models of teaching. And what I think that's done is it's made its way into the workforce and to organizational forms and the way we practice. And we have been really trying to unlearn all of that so that we can really engage. And, there's this old notion that, the people will say this, if it wasn't for the people, this change would be awesome. If it wasn't for the people, I didn't have. Well, the thing is I think we don't understand that tension is a beautiful thing. The paradox is amazing. It is a positive thing, as Sean mentioned. If we can embrace and actually normalize the tension and paradoxes of human relationship, and we can normalize the challenge of it to being a good, positive, generative experience, that's what I think are moving. That's where I think the opportunity is for us. And Gene, I think that's the essence of the spirit that you are trying to share with us in terms of what's possible. So I'm really grateful that you brought and shined the light on that. It looks like you want to say something, Gene?
No, just that I don't think I can share my screen right now, but I just want to repeat, because it fits the conclusion of Stave 2. Scrooge never stopped wandering the streets of London looking for places where he might spread the spirit of Christmas and wishing the passersby a happy holiday any time of year.
Right.
Can we think of the challenges we're facing as opportunities to do the equivalent today?
Yeah, right on.
So are these the tensions we're experiencing opportunities for us?
Yes.
To spread the spirit of Christmas. And I realize that that's a loaded term somewhat religiously, but the idea is wish people a happy holiday any time of year.
That's right.
How do we use those as an opportunity to catch up with Scrooge in his post-spirit self?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Gene. That was wonderful. And thank you, everybody. We're going to jump into this next piece here, which is David and I and others have been working to revisit the field and foundations and to advocate for a professionalizing and an advancing of the field in a little bit of a different way. And we want to go back and get grounded to the core elements, meaning, and some of the thinking around the field of OD. And so we wanted to ask everybody that's on this series a few questions that are really, you've touched on a lot of it already, but we're going to ask you the questions again and just walk you through a few questions to get your thoughts.
Okay.
The first one is for you in terms of the field of OD. You mentioned your description of it. If you could just restate, what is your description of the OD&C, and how has it changed today versus where maybe you were looking at it originally?
You really want an answer to that?
Yep. Gene's up to something. she had that feisty, what do you call it? That impish kind of look on her face, like she was ready. She was going to do something fun.
Where I was looking at it originally,
Oh yeah, yeah.
That rag.
Yeah.
a Handbook of Structured Experiences for Human Relations Training by Pfeiffer and Jones, published
Pfeiffer and
in
Jones.
1975. Oh, this is new comparatively. Yeah, there was all this stuff from the 60s. So I was introduced to OD in the 1960s by people who did a crappy, pathetic job of it, and inspired me to think that there's a lot of power in this and it's got to be able to be doing it better. So by that, so I think if you literally look at it originally, it has moved gigantically beyond here are a bunch of structured exercises, go do them and everything's going to work. So whatever the issues are, I mean, I didn't know that question was coming, but fortunately, I haven't cleared out my office yet. I mean, we've come light years away from what started as a bunch of exercises based on social psychology experiments.
Mhm.
So whatever is going on, this is a big positive movement. So, and I don't know, I just, if somebody's trying to intervene in an organization in a way that involves human processes, for me, it's OD.
Yeah. And how do you see ODC different from other professional human-centered professions like HR or IO psychology or some of the other fields? How do you see OD
I
being different?
I I I would say it's more the focus on intervening in some way. So HR people a lot of people don't distinguish that much between HR and OD. So if HR people are intervening in a way that's aimed at improving human processes, good, that would fit for me. But I don't think a lot of them are.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. David, you have a question you want to ask?
Sure, yeah. So you've already pulled out, I think Dave Fearon said the old rag.
I haven't pulled this off my shelf in the 30 years I've been in this office. So thank you for the chance to do that.
So this is a question related to that. Who are the key historical figures and leaders and thinkers whose work should be considered the anchor of this field?
And that's I mean, there are a lot of people that I don't like. I think there's this guy named Kurt somebody.
Hmm.
There's this guy named Ed Shine. Hang on.
And you know what, Gene, we can save you some time there and we can we'll resend the questions to her. But
No, you're giving me a chance to do stuff I haven't done in forever.
Okay, great. Well, as long as you're having fun, that's what matters.
Rashford and Coughlin, Dynamics of Organization Levels, Ed Shine, Managing Conflict, Richard Walton. These are all these books that were published. Yeah, Weisbord, Marv Weisbord. Physical Settings in OD, Steele. Beckhart and Harris, Organizational Transitions. Larry Greiner and Virginia Shine, Power and OD. Beckhart, I have two copies of Beckhart. Sue Mormon and Tom Cummings. There were a lot of books that were published. Literally, I've not pulled out from my shelves since I moved into this office in 1993. But that there was a lot that was there were many people who were very instrumental at getting things started. And Sandra, you did Productive Workplace, but that was the 1980s or something. So that who's well into the stuff that got me started. So I mean, I think that book is very important, and I think there are a lot of there's a lot that's very important early on, and a lot of people who started practicing OD in ways that went beyond just exercises.
Eric Trist and
Yeah.
Fred Emery really were groundbreakers, and it would be pathetic if they slipped off the radar.
That's right.
Along
Yep.
with Marv.
Yep,
Yep.
a lot, yes.
Well, Marv and I synthesized, and Ron Lippett, you know, there's
No,
so
there-
many
Yep.
to learn from.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
Sandra,
And
what we're doing,
I
so
can't, I can't, I don't want to turn the screen to see all my bookcase. But I mean, there were a lot of people doing really substantial thinking. I think mostly starting in the 70s and the 80s, and that we should value.
Mhm.
The
And what
day,
we're doing in
the
this
day
first,
the day we've embedded all of their brilliant thinking, we can put them to rest, but we haven't yet.
right on. And what we're doing, Sandra, right now, our intention, David and I, are brainstorming, getting everything out. And we're going to keep asking from every corner, and we're just going to make this laundry list and really try to organize it and try to put it into some type of some coherent frame, way of presenting it. But David, you had a question.
Yeah, the follow-up question to that, Gene, would be who are the current voices shaping the future of ODC, and what makes these contributions stand out? And in asking this question, I would also invite you to think about the current voices that may not associate themselves with the label OD, but are clearly doing work that fits.
I don't, I don't, I don't think I can actually answer that. And part of the reason I can't answer that is that my initial instinct would be to go the ODC division, because that's the one I'm most involved in. But as part of preparing for this revised chapter, I started reading a whole bunch of OD Journal and OD Review articles and getting to know the work of a bunch of people. Oh, Bob Marshak has his hand raised, that I would not ordinarily have paid attention to. Like one of the things, I got to know Boehm's work. And that's very, the stuff she's writing, the stuff she's thinking, the stuff she's trying to do is very important. So I don't want to answer that. What I do want to say is that it's not clear to me how much the people doing the academic writing and the people like her who are publishing in OD Journal or OD Review intelligent articles, which I would not characterize all of them as being, but that's a lot of people wouldn't think much of all the articles in Academy Management Journal either. So I think the issue is how do you pay attention to a wider variety of people who have something worth saying?
Yes.
Thanks,
So,
Gene. Hey, Bob, thanks for jumping in. I was hoping you'd get your voice in here with us.
Yes, Dick. I think what I want to say goes to what we've been talking about, but also goes to a different level, if you will. And it's partly my penchant for language and what words mean or don't mean. As I have reflected on things over the many years and where I am right now, I am finding it difficult to describe OD as a field. And the reason for that is simply that it means so many different things to so many different people that it's hard for people to determine what is in and what is out, what's not OD and what is OD. And there are people now who are adamant about addressing the issues we've talked about, adamant about addressing them in value-based, participatory, win-win, whatever you want to describe ways, but have never heard of OD, never read a book on OD, don't understand what it's supposed to be or not to be. And so you have people who say, well, you're not OD. I remember when Marv started the ideas about future search, and that was defined as not OD. And when appreciative inquiry started, that was not OD. And so we have this thing of like you're in or you're out. So personally, I'm thinking more in terms of OD as a community of people with a certain set of values and aspirations and tools and techniques. And if we begin to try and pull the community together without having to say you have to pass a litmus test of doing X, Y, or knowing this, that, or another. It would help us, but it would also help us find our common cause and not the divisions. So I think we're too focused in many ways on the differentiations of what I know and my tool and my technique versus your tool and your technique. So you'll have to excuse me, but every time I hear people talk about our field, an OD, I keep wanting to say, would you please define that? Because I'm not sure you're talking about the same thing I'm talking about. Okay, I'll be quiet and see what I've stirred up.
Thank you, Bob. I'm really glad to hear your voice and have you be here today. Thank you. So, shifting to the another question, and with the time, I'm going to jump in because I think, in some ways, Dave, the whole session was really getting at the next question around theories of people. But you talked about this, and so we're going to have a wrap-up question with Dave. But I just wanted to ask you, Gene, think of the practitioners and think of the scholars. As you think of the competencies, and this is particularly those in ODC, Organizational Development Change, that are focused on it. What's a competency of a practitioner that's most important to you, and what's a competency of a scholar that's most important for that scholar in this field or area of work?
I think it depends somewhat on the issue. Like Bob Marshak, I know knows a ton about issues of language. Bob, I'm not remembering the exact words right because I haven't been thinking about it. But you know a lot about different cultural meanings of uses of language and things like that. Did you know in a scholarly way, you are also a very skilled practitioner. So I guess I would, and the stuff Bill Passmore is recognizing, the kinds of scholarly needs right now and the kind having to do with artificial intelligence are real different from how do we get this team to work together without thinking about the roles of our artificial companions. So I think the question is good, and I think it cannot be answered on this level. I think it needs to be a broader, I think there are different sets of competence, just as some counselors can work with some issues, not all issues, psychologists and so forth. I think there probably needs to be some differentiation in the type of issue that's being addressed and the kind of skills, both academic and consultant wise, that are going to need to be involved.
Okay. Well, thank you, Gene. I think that's a fair assessment there. And Dave, you want to wrap us up with the final question?
Sure. Yeah. So I really appreciate what Bob has just shared with us, and I share some of those same questions and concerns and perspectives. So with all that as a caveat, for you, what is the ultimate purpose of OD?
Oh, Lord. um, well, I'll give one thing at the low end, which was the way I experienced it at first. One ultimate purpose of OD is not to make things worse, which was how I got introduced to the field. And I think an ultimate, I would put this, it's not to make things better. It's to open up possibilities for continued growth. How does that sound for just, I think that's the way I'd like to put it. Not fix things, but increase the possibilities of ongoing development and growth in whatever area is needed.
Okay. Cool. So with that in mind, what would be the dependent variables? What would be the indicators that we're making progress?
I've been doing qualitative research for too long to be able to give you a dependent variable. I'm not
Okay.
kidding. I mean, so open things up for continued growth and development, and how, if anybody wants to design a measure for that and do some exploratory and confirmatory factor analyses to make sure that the measure works.
Yeah. So just do it in your language. Like, what would be the impact? What would changes if we're successful?
What would change is that after the intervention is done, the organization members, for a start, don't say, I don't want any more of that crap, which is what I was involved in my first time. And what they do say is, gee, that opens up some new possibilities for us. Let's see what else we can do to take it further.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the chance to do this.
Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. Happy holidays.
Same to all of you.
Yes.
Same to
And
all of you.
let's all enjoy our blessings and the wonderful people in our lives every day, and particularly so in the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have a great day, everybody.
Is there a way to save the chat? I can't figure out how
Yeah,
to do it.
we'll get that. We'll be saving that, and we'll give you everything and all of this right
Awesome.
after we wrap up. We'll get the recording, the chat, and everything.
Great. That will be a great present. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. Have a great rest
Thanks
of
all
the
of
day.
you.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, David.
Thank you.